And 2,500 blokes, shine, shine. And Graham Kedrick's going, oh, that's an old song, we don't need to sing it. But that persistency of it. And since then, that's become the gathering's kind of motto. Shine, Jesus, shine. It's really, really fantastic. We now have a video to watch.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has never put it out. The true light that shines on everyone was coming into the world. The Word was in the world, yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. Yet some people accepted him and put their faith in him. So he gave them the right to be children of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us.
The flesh became light. Jesus is the light. So at Message Church yesterday, for those of you who weren't there, we were looking at how we can become scared in the dark and how much of a relief it is when that light appears. When in your house, I asked a question and I'll ask it here, how many people have the little sensor lights in like their hallways or something, so at nighttime as you walk by, the light shines on? We've got two. And what I was kind of saying is why should it matter? If you're at your own house and it's pitch black, why should it matter? Because you know where everything is, unless kids have like dropped Lego bits on the floor, and then, it's not that ours would do that, of course not, would you, Annabelle? But it's really, really good when you walk out and it's kind of really dark, and then that light turns on. It just gives you that reassurance. But we also talked about why we are scared. What happens when we know what should be there, and yet we get a little bit scared because we start thinking what could be there. We also looked at the life that we lead. The normal everyday life, going to a new school, a new job, getting married, going to a new home, having to move in whatever circumstances, and how that can be really difficult and really scary. Circumstances that are beyond our control, such as the rising cost of food and fuel. We get scared about whether or not we can pay our mortgage, pay for our heating. We get ill and we get scared about what it could mean. It all becomes too much. We feel afraid and lost. And much like being in the woods in the dark, we just need that reassurance. We just need that torch to light the way, to help us to see. The problem is that for many of us, the path is not lit. We can't see the destination. And once you get off the path, it's very hard to get back on course. Now, I used this analogy before, and I can't remember if it was this church or someone else. But this is actual data. I don't know what you want to call it. But if I'm standing right here, and I'm heading there, and I move 1 degree to the right, that's about like that. Okay? Did you notice that? There's that 1 degree. By the time I get to that door, I'm going to be just under 2 feet off-centered. If I'm heading to my house, I'm roughly going to be about 8 feet off from the front door. If I was heading to London, I would be off by 22 feet, if we were to say Buckingham Palace. If I was going to Edinburgh, I would miss it by 56 feet. If I was going around the earth, so if I traveled from here and went in a line and went around the earth, I would miss this spot by over 300 meters. If I was going to the moon, I would miss it by 1,800 meters. If I was going to the sun, I'd miss it by a few million miles. Just by going off 1 degree. Psalm 119 says this, "Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." Now, if you're not a Christian, let me ask you this. If money was the answer, why do so many rich people struggle to find happiness? If fame was the answer, why do so many famous people fall from their pillars? If being educated and super smart was the answer, why do so many intellects keep searching for answers? As adults, we know life is tough. Life can be very hard. And we don't always know what is best. We don't always know what we should do. And so we try and do the best we can with the knowledge we have in the circumstances that we are in. But I'm going to give you guys a terrible analogy. And it probably is a terrible analogy. But please bear with me. Imagine you want a bed. So you go to a particular Swedish company. There's other companies, obviously, but we all go to the Swedish one. And you get the bed, and you bring it home. And you find out there's no instructions. And the parts are all laid out. Now you have in your mind what the bed should look like. You know what it's going to look like. It's in your mind, but that's what's been given to you. You didn't pick it, it was given to you. And you bring it home, and there's no instructions. Now, if you're like Stu, or probably like me, you'd be like, oh, give it a go. But then someone comes up to you and says, I've got some instructions. Don't know where they came from, but here are some instructions. And so you get those instructions, and you look to where the parts are, and you find that all the parts match exactly what you have before you. You've got two choices here. You can either say, I'm going to ignore that, and I'm just going to give it a go. You have an idea of what your bed should look like, but you don't know if all those parts will give you the bed that you want without cutting things. So this is without cutting, without adding more stew. This is what you're given, and you have an idea. This is what I want my bed to be, but you have no instructions. So you think, I'll just give it a go. Or you think, you know what? All the instructions tell me it has everything there. Logic says it probably is going to be the bed that it was made for. What do? Do you follow those instructions? Because at the end of the day, you will get a bed. But it's either a bed that you weren't expecting, or it's a bed that's possibly not really well made because you put it yourself. So in the Bible, we read again these words from John. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So each day the sun rises, it warms the planet, it warms us, it gives us a sense of peace and hope because we have that light. It creates growth. Without the sun, everything would die. When we want to go into a darkened room, the first thing we do is hit the light switch. If we go outside in the dark, we get a torch. We want to see where we're going. It makes sense. The problem is if we don't rely on others and we only have ourselves, it's very easy to get lost. It's very easy to make mistakes. And if we do, we only have ourselves to blame. But as a Christian, you can rely on a creator God to guide you. And you see, I fully believe this. I'm nearly done. Because if I'm wrong, if all of this is just make-believe stuff, yeah? And I die, and I just become worm food, I've lost nothing. I genuinely have hope, tangible hope. And I have friends, and I have a blessing, And I feel blessed. And I have so much to be grateful for because of my commitment to being here. And if I'm wrong, I've lost nothing. I've honestly lost nothing. But if I'm right, if we're right, those of you who believe, we have a treasure to gain. And this is why I believe Jesus says that he is the light. Because he can give us that guidance, that direction. He can help us see beyond what we can't see. He can point us onto the right path and help us stay there. He can be those set of instructions which will help us to make sense of what is happening in our lives. And we've got a few scripture verses, John 1 through 4. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. It shines, it gives us hope, it gives us guidance, it gives us peace, it gives us wisdom, and it directs us as we go. 2 Corinthians, for God said, let light shine out of darkness, and made his light shine in our hearts to give us a light of knowledge. 1 John, but if we walk in light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And from Jesus his Son. And of course, Psalm 119, your word is a lamp for my feet and a light unto my path. Trivia quiz for you. A match on a ship. How far can you see that match? Can anyone give me some answers? Higher. 10 miles? How about 20 miles? If you're on an aircraft carrier, which is 235 feet up, you can see a lit match from over 32 miles on good conditions. A lit match, 32 miles. That's fact. I can't prove it, but you can go on the internet and prove it. But I have seen light from land that's well over 30, 40 miles away on a ship before. The light will not go out. If you trust in Jesus, he will light your path. There's so much struggle and hardship in the world, and God says, trust in him. He alone will help us. The path that lays ahead of us, for he is the light, and he says to us, I will light the way. We're now going to sing.